Week 5 of the NFL season is here, and Ron, Rigney, and yours truly are here to help you break down the Week 5 NFL slate, build your daily fantasy football lines, get you in the green, and win some money. So once again, Colby, Conway, Ron, Rigney coming up next with the Week 5 consistently Cashin DFS lineup.
Yeah, I bet on myself. Yeah, I bet on myself. I don't need you, I do it myself. Yeah, I bet on myself. Yeah, I bet on myself. Yeah.
All right, Ron, we got to take a look here, and I'm going to unveil the lineup here in a second. But before we do it, let me just ask you quickly while I'm getting it all set up. What were your thoughts on the slate this week? Because there is a ton of injuries, so a ton of value. It was a little bit tough to build, I thought.
It was tough, and it's a little bit brutal at times because it's a hard balance of there's a lot of value to be had at some spots, and it allows you to pay up at other spots, but then you feel like, am I only going with this guy just because I have the money to afford him? Do I like the matchup? Do I want to have two studs from the same offense? But again, with the week 5 buys, you got some big guys that aren't playing. You've got some lead dogs in the backfields that are not suiting up this week. So I do like the value here, but it made it tough at times. So we'll see what we got here. But I think we ended up coming up with something pretty good.
Well, let's unveil the lineup here for the Week 5 consistently cashed lineup. At quarterback, we are going with Justin Fields. No team has allowed more fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season than the Dallas Cowboys. They've also allowed the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks, and we all know that tool is certainly in the bag for Justin Fields. He's been very good of late. Should be a good game for fantasy purposes as well. So Justin Fields at 5,600 for us was simply too cheap to pass up. And we did even leave a little bit of money on the table. So if you did want to go up, you could to some other options. But Ron, before you kind of jump into the running backs here, and I'll let you can segue right into it. But Justin Fields just might have the chance to be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate.
Yeah, we've seen Dallas allow fantasy points to bunches to opposing offenses, and Justin Fields, he's not thrown an interception yet, which I think is key with his development as well this season. And when you look at the Jets, and you look at the Jets not being that great of a team, you can't look at Justin Fields. He's done what he needs to do. If he can get you that 200 points, he's had at least 48 rushing yards in every game. He's got 3 rushing scores, but the lack of turnovers is the key. But if he can get you over 250 rushing, a touchdown on the ground, a touchdown through the air, that's a pretty nice little fantasy day. And there's a lot of room for more against that Cowboy offense. So head into the running back spot. This is kind of what I was alluding to before with a lot of value there. And so the guy I'm going to start with is Rachaad White at $4,700. He's Bucky Irving out. They think it's a week-to-week injury. So this is something where if Rachaad White ends up being the starter more than just this week, that price is going to go up quite a bit. I don't love the fact that they're on the road against all the way to Seattle. And the Seahawks haven't been awful against opposing running backs. But once again, anytime you can get a guy out of the backfield that is going to be the lead dog, that's what you're looking for. And at $4,700, that usage should be there. And even though the Seahawks haven't allowed a ton of fantasy points, they have allowed 29 grabs for 266 yards to opposing running backs. So I like Rachaad White to be involved in the passing game a little bit as well.
Yep, and he's obviously very good in the passing game. And Sean Tucker's good on the ground, but how much work does he get in the passing game? Obviously, DraftKings, you get the PPR scoring. So I really like Rachaad White. And then you look here, no Chuba Hubbard means that Rico Dowdle is in line to start. Trevor Etienne will be in the mix as well. But you have a Miami team that's allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. That defense just isn't good, Ron. Like, defense is just bad. I don't like it. I think Carolina can actually keep this game close and maybe even play with a little bit of a lead, which actually works well for Dowdle, kind of just to grind the clock down and get us the fantasy points that we need. And plus, at 4,300, he's just going to be rostered by so many people. Like, the ownership is going to be there. So if he stinks, in theory, he should be one of the higher owned running backs. So kind of most of the field goes down with us, if you will. So like Rico Dowdle there at 4,300. And I'm just going to kick this one over to you, Ron. When you look at wide receivers for the season, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver 2 on the year, 75% consistent. He was a lock for our lineup. You and I both love him this week.
Yeah, it's one of those things that value of running back really allows you to have money to pay up a wide receiver, and that's what we've been able to do. And even a couple of these wide receivers, I think, are reasonably priced for the matchups that they have. But Amon-Ra, 24.4 points per week on DraftKings against a Bengals team that cannot do anything is not helping us in fantasy at all, especially on defense. They're in the bottom third in fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. And we've seen that Lions offense kind of come to life over the last couple of weeks. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that they can't do that again against a terrible Bengals defense.
Yeah, I want to throw this out there. Bengals have allowed the eighth most fantasy points per game to wideouts this season. Brown has scored 6 touchdowns over his last 3 games, and he's basically a top 2 or 3 wide receiver in the slot so far this season. So love Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then also we got Nico Collins in there. Here's the thing. When you pay down at running back, you got the money to spend elsewhere. That is for sure. So you're going to see some big names here at wide receiver. I'm going to use a relatively cliche term here, so don't hate me too much, Ron. But the Baltimore Ravens injury report looks like a CVS receipt. It's long, it's lengthy. There's a lot
I
on
like that.
a lot of big names on it too. Then you got this Baltimore team. They're allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Nico Collins has been the only option in the Houston attack that you can actually trust thus far. And I'm going to say trust like I can't. I'm going to say I'm italicizing the word trust as I'm saying it. He's the only one you can trust right now, but he is 75% consistent through 3 weeks. Is going to be some backup corners there, and this is a chance for Houston to kind of maybe get right, if you will. But he's got a 26.5% target share on the season. Ravens have been burned downfield, and Nico Collins is the one that they trust downfield. So I like Nico Collins. 6,800 I think is very affordable. Anything to add on Nico before you talk about the receiver that we're pairing with Justin Fields?
No, not a lot. Just again, one of those matchups where it's against a defense that's in the bottom third against wide receivers. That Ravens defense was not the Ravens defense that we're used to seeing as far as the amount of yards and points that they're allowing. So that last wide receiver spot, we're going to go with Garrett Wilson. We're going to stack him with Justin Fields. We're going to pick on that Dallas defense again. I believe I saw a stat last week that said Dallas is number one in total yards on offense, and they are last in total defense. They have allowed the most. They allowed the most yards per game on defense, and again, they're right there at the very top when you're looking at fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They've allowed 9 receiving touchdowns to the position. And Garrett Wilson, when you look at the New York Jets target share, it's Garrett Wilson with 38, and I don't even know if you can name who's number 2 as far as receivers, but I looked it up just to make sure. It's Tyler Johnson with a whopping 6 targets. Their number 2 overall is Breece Hall with 19, but it's clearly Garrett Wilson is the apple of Justin Fields' eye, and so nothing's going to change heading in that matchup with Dallas. He's still going to get a fair amount of targets, and again, that price point, we could pay up a little bit, but $6,100 I think is very affordable for that matchup that he has.
Yeah, you don't have to strain too much to get Garrett Wilson in the lineup this week. And if you look, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland both logged full practices on Friday, so you'd expect to see them out there. But Malik Hooker did not practice, so that's another member of the secondary that's going to be down for them. So I like this. And the other thing too, despite having those corners back, those corners back or the cornerbacks back for Dallas, they have just been brutal on the perimeter. That's where Garrett Wilson has thrived this year, 2.55 yards per route run per fantasy points. So I do love me some Garrett Wilson in this matchup. Ron, I'm going to let you talk about the tight end because I'm pretty sure he was the poster boy of an article that you had this week at Big Guy Fan Sports, or he at least was the poster boy of the post on X that you made.
He was, and you don't necessarily feel great about going with anybody on that Carolina team at any position. We Rico Dowdle we do feel pretty good about at the value that he's at. But other than that, we talked a little bit about this guy as a 1 week wonder, Bob and I on Monday night, and it's Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame. Carolina Panthers tight end Jatavian Sanders is out. He's a week-to-week injury. Tommy Tremble kind of came to life last week. 8 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards, and a score. Earned himself his first clutch game of the season. And lo and behold, who do they face this week? They face a Dolphins defense that is one of the worst against the tight end position. 24 grabs, 302 yards, and 2 scores in the first 4 games. Bryce Young, haven't really seen any steps forward. It's going to be some checkdowns. He's going to check it down to Dowdle. He's going to check it down to Tommy Tremble. Tetro McMillan's been a little bit banged up. There's really not been anybody else in that receiving core that's contributed much. But for $2,900, I think this is. I mean, if you're looking to save it at tight end, and even the position this week overall, with a lot of guys on bye, I looked at the top there, and I don't know about you, but there's not a lot of guys that I felt great about. I mean, Sam Laporta's in a nice spot. Jake Ferguson actually wouldn't be bad, but at $2,900, If Tommy Tremble can get us 5 for 50 and a touchdown or 3 for 30 and a touchdown at $2,900, he's going to fit nicely with the rest of this lineup that we paid up for.
Absolutely. 2 Carolina Panthers in our week 5 lineup. Who would have thunk it there? But the value is simply too good, my friend. We'll wrap it up at the flex. We're going with Jameer Gibbs. The Bengals have allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs on the season. Jameer Gibbs is your RB5 overall and a perfect 100% consistent at the running back position. So you can see what we did there. And this is kind of the crux of the consistency kind of mindset that we have when we're building these lineups. When you get the injuries, you can take some of those value plays, stick them in there because you know most of the field. Because again, we're building these lines for 50-50s and double ups. That's what we're building these lineups for. We're not trying to take first out of 100,000 entries. We're trying to get 8th out of 100 or 20th out of 100. We're just trying to be in the top 50% because that's where you can get paid. But aside from the value that we're taking that has presented itself with the Trembles, Dowdles, and Rachaad Whites of the world, look at the lineup. Wilson, consistent with Justin Fields. Nico Collins, consistent. Amon-Ra St. consistent. Jameer Gibbs, 100% consistent. That is the crux of what we are trying to do here. And Ron, after seeing what Cincinnati did last week, good Lord, we have money for it. Why not take the Lions? I know we talk about, I've mentioned it a couple times here with different positions. Oh, they've allowed the X most fantasy points per game to running backs. You don't really hear it much with defense, but so far this season, Cincinnati has been the friendliest offense to opposing defenses here. So talk to me about the Lions here in this matchup.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. We're still leaving $500 on the table, and you could pay up and take the Cardinals, and I wouldn't have a problem with that either. That Tennessee offense is doing next to nothing right now. But I felt a little better about the Lions. I felt like they can get after the quarterback a little bit. I felt like Jake Browning's susceptible to throwing interceptions. Not that Cam Ward isn't, but I just feel like I like that matchup a little bit better. I know they have Jamar Chase on that side of the ball, and now they have Chase Brown, but it's hard to get anything going if your quarterback's not getting it going. So the $3,500. They average 8.8 per week. I think that's a solid choice. Again, I think you make a nice case for the Cardinals there at 3,600, but I felt a little more comfortable with the Lions at 35.
Absolutely. I'm good with it. So that'll do the week 5 lineup here for consistently Cashin. Justin Fields, Rachaad White, Rico Dowdle, Amon-Ra St. Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, Tommy Tremble, Jameer Gibbs, and the Detroit Lions defense. So Ron, let's get up out of here. Let everyone get these lineups submitted and get ready for the week 5 slate ahead. But first, let everyone know where they can find you on X and what you got on BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Yeah, as always, at Ron Rigney on the X Machine. Check out all the pods we got over there. Of course, this one, the prop bets. Bob and James killing it on Thursday night with the Consistency Show. Bob and I coming at you every Monday talking about those 1 week wonders, those guys that got a clutch game that don't normally get you those clutch games. Highlight a few of those in a quick pod. Got this week 5 start sit over there. Talked about your boy Tommy Tremble. Talked about a few others as well that you might see in this lineup. So again, Colby's over there, James Knight, Bob Long, everybody killing it. Go get that consistency goodness at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Absolutely. And you can follow me over on X at Colby R. Conway. Check out my Who's Hot, Who's Not article. Obviously, the Consistent Cashin podcast. And then if you're into player props, check out the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast and article at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Make sure you give Ron a follow as well as everybody else here at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Best of luck with your week 5 DFS lineups. And as always, stay consistent.